Good evening and welcome to the Simply Colorful FiberCast. Today's date is April 7th, 2017. My name is Lynn and I'm your host. Welcome to another Friday night where for 60 minutes we get to create together. So I'm so glad you could join me. Right now we are diving into Clue 7 of the Row by Row Mystery Quilt that we're doing here at Simply Colorful. I hope if you have not joined us that you will. We're again in the 7th clue, the 7th week. It's a full 12-week program, and we're starting to see what it's looking like. These are some of the earlier rows that we've put together. You can make any size from a crib size with 1 block a week to a king size, which has 4 blocks sewn in a row a week. And I hope you'll join us. But if not, grab a project, because you know what we say, it's amazing what we can get done here in 60 minutes together. So welcome. I am ready to play with values, and I'm ready to bring you up to date on my week, and I want you to bring me up to date on your week. So send email to lmarquidant@gmail.com and we'll go from there. Okay, so here's the clue. The actual pattern or the block that we're making this week is called the Arkansas Snowflake. It's behind me in 2 colorways. And see how it looks like a race car? The way that the values are there, it looks like the darkers on each side are the wheels, and you're looking down on the top of a race car. Well, that same block, the Arkansas Snowflake, can look completely different if I put the dark values in different places, and that's what I'm going to play with. I have two blocks, and I'm really starting from the beginning. I didn't have time to prep, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I have pinks here, 4 different colors, so pick out 4 different colors. Pinks I'm going to do with my my light orange background for one quilt, and then I have greens here to do a second one if we have time. So let me put the greens aside so as not to confuse us. I always publish on these patterns the template, the rotary cutting, and the paper piecing instructions. They're available on patreon.com. So if you would like a copy of the pattern each week, join. It's as little as 50 cents a week, even less on months that have 5 weeks, meaning it's $2 a month. I chose the paper piecing method because I like the results. And you might think this is a big pattern, and it probably is. But by the time I get to Friday night, I haven't had time to clean things up enough to get my cutter out and cut the actual squares. So I like to use this way. First, I'm going to use my glue stick. This is the best tip, and thank you to many of you, Becca and Deb and Karen, for teaching me this. There are only 2 pieces on this whole pattern where the background fabric will go. And it's here. I hope you can see this. And it's here. It's these squares on either side. Everywhere else, I need color. And so what I've discovered really works for me is if I clip a little piece of color and I glue it on the paper piece backing, it is just great. So I've already decided what I want to do is I want to have a light points on either end, but then I want to have dark around the points up and down what looks like the car body here. And then what looks like the wheels on the 2 behind me, the 2 examples I've done, I'm going to make that really light and see if it turns out that it looks like more of a cigar than it does a car. So let's see if we can do this, okay? So in creating the cigar, what I did was I'm going to put a very light pink here. And you know now, Shari out in Pennsylvania, I'm remembering that we had talked about doing a Facebook Live. And I guess I know because it was such a busy week, I didn't turn that on, but we're getting close, probably next week. Why not? Okay, and then, so those are my 2 very lights, two very light pinks. But then I want to surround them with this darker pink. And And so I'm going to put little pieces here. This might seem like an extra step, but I promise you, for anyone who may struggle with the back and forth of paper piecing, this makes it such an enjoyable process. So I go over here, and it's pretty quick. I usually have this kind of prep done before we dial in, but I have been up in New Hampshire for 3 days at MQX. I just arrived home a couple of hours ago. Okay, see what I've done so far? Now, the only other thing I have to do is decide, I think I'm going to put this on the big squares on either side. So that I really don't have to glue stick. I know that. Now, let me iron. Now, since I saw you last, I have been not only to MQX, which I'm going to tell you all about. I'm going to show you the thread I got and the 4 classes I took and the purchase I made. But even before that, and since I've seen you, I have been out to Amherst at the quilt show last Sunday with Jean and Kelsey and Nancy and Lima. We had such a good time. We missed everyone else. But we had such a good time, and the quilts were beautiful. And when I was there, so the reason I mentioned that, when I was there, I've been meeting so many nice people in the last 2 weeks. I met Charlie, who has designed this board, a small take it with you ironing board, and Penny. And they designed the board. It's only 2.5 pounds. It's Amish built. They were selling so many of them. Charlie couldn't make them anymore, so he had, or because they didn't have time, and he has the Amish building them. Now, of course, I got it home, and I love how it sits here, but I don't have a little iron. This iron is too big for it, so I've still got my old ironing board. But anyway, I got that when I was out in Amherst. They gave it to me to try. I should say that. So thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So now that things are pretty much ironed, the way I do this is I take my good scissors. Does this make you cringe? And I cut out my 4 pieces. I already have Aurifil in my bobbin and top thread here. I've made 2 of these so far, and I've really enjoyed how it's gone together. It's as simple as, I hope you can see this. It's going to go like this after I put those 4 pieces together. And then I'll sew them together. I already cut out 2 of those on either side. And then, and again, you know, I usually have this done by the time we're together, don't I? So you can see this step of the process. It's what we all do. Oh, it's so nice to touch fabric. I've missed it for these past 3 days. You know, when you take classes, all I wanted to do was get home and play. But of course, the classes I was taking were machine quilting focused. So let me tell you the classes I took. Again, this is the MQX Festival up in New Hampshire. Highly recommended if you haven't been there. It's fun to look at the machines. There are lots of choices. Victoria Findlay Wolf was there. The quilts were amazing. I went to the award ceremony on Wednesday night. And that was, you know, the best part of the award ceremony was when the children's quilt category came up, and Levelly is his name, gave every single entrant a new sewing machine. Tell me that didn't warm your heart. And they were those kids were so excited. So that was probably the highlight of the awards. The awards were beautiful. The quilts were beautiful, amazing. See how I'm cutting these very big? I use a lot of fabric. For anyone who's new tonight, you will learn that when I paper piece, I use a lot of extra fabric. So I've got those 4 pieces cut out. Now all I need to do is cut. So I just guesstimate. And these 2, I put right sides together so that when I open them up, they fit on either side there. Same thing here, and then, do I have enough? Just barely. Okay, so all my pieces are cut out. Now we're simply going to paper piece, and this is fun. These are numbered on the pattern D1, D2, D3. So always start with the 1. Not that in this pattern, it doesn't matter, but it's a good habit I've discovered to get into so that you don't end up getting yourself into a corner where the overlapping papers just don't work nicely. There is a reason why they're numbered sometimes. Okay, now let's move this up to 4. Oh, it's so good to get in front of the machine again. Yay. Okay, and then what I do when I paper piece is, I'm sure you do this too, I like to gang them up or do them in a series of flags or chain piecing. Saves on thread, saves on time because you don't have to cut all the ends off. Okay, so those are 2. Now like this one, let's see which. Here's an example. Of course, I went and glued the fabric on top, but I can just read it from the back. So this one's A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. So I'm going to start up there. I should have cut this. It's a big triangle. You know, I love this machine. But it's rattling a little bit, as if maybe the hook is a little worn. Is that what I'm learning? Maybe. So it might be jiggling a little. And it still swivels a little bit, or it floats underneath that, underneath my foot there, as if the feed dogs aren't up quite high enough. See, so there's that. But boy, do I love this machine. So, speaking of machines, well, first I'll tell you what classes I took. I took 4 classes, 2 on Wednesday, 1 on Thursday, 1 on Friday. I stayed up in Manchester on Wednesday night because I was there all day Wednesday, went to the award ceremony, looked at the quilts, went to the floor, and started testing long arm machines. Then, actually, I looked at long arm machines. Who am I kidding? I was afraid to go near one. So then the next morning, I forget how this, but I didn't test drive any that night. So I went to 2 classes on Wednesday. The first was what to think about before you buy a long arm machine. Very good. Mandy Appleby from Yellow House Quilts out in New York. She was great. So Mandy, if you're out there, thank you. She gave us a wonderful handout, and I highly recommend if there's anyone out there. In fact, Colleen, if you happen to be online, let me know. I would be happy to share with you her tips. And, and her checklists and all that. In fact, I should have mentioned that when I saw you today. Then later in the day, then I had 3 hours off. So I checked my email. I went onto the floor. I looked at, no, I didn't go on the floor because it wasn't open yet. So we're still Wednesday. In the afternoon, it was everything, bare bones basics of machine quilting. And that was really good. We went over everything from thread to batting it was really basic. But again, it was good. It was taught by the same Mandy, and she had a very nice handout. And probably the interesting thing I learned was that in these show quilts that always seem to hang so beautifully flat. Have you ever noticed that? Especially the ones that seem to have a lot of quilting on them. One trick I learned is that they oftentimes have 2 layers of batting, a polyester batting on the back, a thin one, and then wool on top of it, and they quilt it together. And the back allows the quilt to hang flat, and then the wool on the front allows it to have almost that trapunto-like look, or the quilting comes in and out. So I'd never known that. Of course, that's for a show quilt, and my first thought was, I have to pay for 2 backing, two inserts, but it was good to know. You know what I mean, 2 rolls of batting. Okay, there's that. I'm gonna iron this. And then this is looking pretty. So then I went to the awards Wednesday night. Then the show floor opened. I walked around, I looked, and then I went and stayed at a Holiday Inn because the Radisson was booked. Because I hadn't planned on staying over, really. Although I had packed my bag that morning and told Bob I'd see him the next day. Then Thursday morning, this was really good. Deborah Poole from the Midwest came, longtime heirloom quilter, has a book, did a lot of quilting for Kim Deal. She was there giving us her do's and don'ts if you were to start a long arm quilting business. That was really useful too. And it all comes down to communication, setting the right expectations, understanding building a relationship. And so it was really good. And she had some beautiful quilts, and she showed quilts that she fixed, that had, whether they had, seams that were bulging, or maybe wavy edging. And And all I could think of as she was going through this, I kept thinking, oh, what kind of quilts have I dropped off to my long armors, whether it's Dockside Quilting, Chris Myers, or it's Blueberry Lane with Kelsey Ullman. The quilts, the messes that I have delivered, I'm sure, were probably such a pain. So that was really good. Again, Deborah Poole. Then I went and test drove and talked to people and read things. And then I had gone online the night before anyway, just doing my homework. And I talked to Chris, and I talked to Kelsey, and I talked to my sister, and I talked to my husband. And then today I went back for my final class, which was basic machine quilting, another one where we did hands-on, we practiced different types of movements in the machine quilting. And that was good too, you know, freehand machine quilting. And then I went back and I test drove the 2 finalists, and I started to talk to them about support and setup and yada, yada, yada. And at the end of the day, I put a down payment on a Gamel. So I'm very excited, and I will keep you posted on the adventure. And I would love to know if anyone out there uses a Gamel, has a Gamel, does machine quilting, period. So anyway, that's my new adventure. And I cannot believe it's April 7th already. I did not have any idea. Passover's Monday. Happy Passover. And is that right? I'm not supposed to say Happy Passover. Happy Rosh Hashanah. Anyway, Good Friday and Easter are the following week. So let's bring on the daffodils. See how I've got the dark and the light here? Ooh, I can hear Allie. And once I get this, okay, so same thing. Once I get these all adhered to, I'm going to see who's out there. I wonder if I see my nice little holder, Diane. I wonder if my phone is off. Yes, it is. Okay. All right. See, so I'm just lining this up with pink fabric, which is my sister's favorite color. And Diane is doing pink, I think, on her blog. Several of you are, actually. Allie, down under in Australia, always does pinks and purples. There it is. Hi, Chris. Thank you for testing my dinger. Thank you again for all your help over the last couple of days. Okay. Chris says, very excited for you. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay, so I have one more piece on each of these, and then we'll see who's out there and what you're doing on this Friday night. Oh. You know, we should do a poll asking everyone when they started quilting. What fascinates me, and I'll put a poll up on our Simply Colorful Facebook just for kicks, And what's really interesting to me is even for many of us who started sewing when we were little, I find it so, and for someone like myself who has quite a short attention span, I find it really interesting that I have not wavered from my love of touching the fabric, of playing with the machines. I feel very fortunate. But anyway, let me iron this and then we'll see who's out there. There's just something so satisfying. So look at this. Here we have these. That's quite a good contrast. And we have these. Not very much contrast. Now, let me put the raw edges, and now I have to trim them up. So maybe I won't even do that yet. But you're starting to see what's going to happen. All right, let's see who's out there. Hey, KB. KB says, catching up on bills and paperwork so I can sew all weekend. Thanks for keeping me company. Aw. And congrats. Aw. Have a blast sewing. Oh, Sarah says she's picking me up tomorrow at 9:15 for doll making club. Textile tarts. If I didn't say it, and I should have, send your email to lmarquidant@gmail.com. Ha, Dawn Stewart, award-winning author on Amazon. Dawn says, hi from Dawn. Hi, Lynn. I knew you'd come back with a new machine. You do know me. Having fun sewing blocks with you. Been quilting over 35 years. Have a great weekend, says Dawn. Isn't that something? And we still enjoy it. I love that. I'm ready for our next retreat. And next retreat, let's sit near each other. I feel like I didn't see you the last one, but I did. Hey, Eileen. Eileen, what a nice surprise. It's titled Finally Back. She says, I haven't been able to watch for over 2 months. No internet. Well, welcome back. She says, moving is a major pain, even just across town. That is true. She says, everything is in the new place. Just need to find a place for all our stuff. You never know how much stuff you have until you need to move it all. That's so true. That's why I love this minimalist movement that we keep reading about online. She says, I'm determined to open every box and discard anything that I haven't used in the last year. Good for you. Have you heard of that, another internet thing, 40 bags in 40 days? So every day you're supposed to fill a bag. I'm still not there, and I have to be there. Especially with my new purchase, I have to make room for the behemoth. So good for you. You're inspiring me. And definitely just sell it or give it away or discard it. The only exception, I love this, the only exception is sewing stuff that you don't use in every project. Things like my embroidery floss and buttons and beads. She says, FiberCast and us were a good break from carrying boxes upstairs from the garage, the sewing storage area, and unpacking each box. No, just stacking up the boxes. I'll never open them all and get rid of the stuff I never use if they are in a big pile. Good for you. And she says, I plan on getting this done within 6 months. Wish me luck. I wish you luck, and please keep checking back. We want to know how it goes. You're going to inspire us. You've inspired me. I will. So you're opening every box. It's not like over the weekend. I'll put a bag out this weekend. Might be a bag this size. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I will get started this weekend. Oh, Allie. Speaking of Allie and her pretty pink and purples, she says, LOL, forgot the photo. Oh, okay, I'm downloading it. And I'm reading my email backwards, so I bet you've already emailed. Oh, that's awesome. Look at this. So this is a perfect example of playing with the values of the Arkansas snowflake. See, that looks like a race car to me. Very cool. Okay, so here are Allie's notes. Allie's calling in or writing in from Australia. She says, I made the block last night. It needs to be ironed and background sides put on later. She says, I did rotary cutting and mucked up one joint when piecing. I thought about picking, but then thought I will quilt it out. Ooh, exactly. Do you have a long arm? Have I seen a picture of that? I think you do for your business, right? She says, I'm busy today with house stuff, but we'll hopefully get back to sewing later today. It's Saturday in Australia right now. She says, I'm still working on the Peace and Love mystery and think I will be making a variety of small cot and lap quilts instead of one large quilt. Oh, that's a good idea. And Allison says, have a great weekend. You too. Wonderful. Glad to know you're home. Carol. Hi, Carol. She says, hi, Lynn and FiberCasters. Hope you will have had a good week. The weather here has been very good, and I have done a little bit of overtime at work. Hope that this keeps up. Ooh, she says, I've not done a lot of sewing this week, but I have done this week's clue. Way to go. She says, I used a patterned purple similar to my background for the points. This is the only dark color I have used so far. She says, I have been cutting out this week and have been using a charm pack. Ooh, that's a good idea. It's because, you know, when you use a charm pack, even though at first blush they might not look like they all go together, they really do. The designers and the manufacturers have picked out a palette of colors. So they do that work for us. So Carol says, I've been using a charm pack. It's one I've had for a while, and when I came to look through it, I found that about 6 of the charms were not full size. Ooh, have you or any of the FiberCasters had this happen to you? Well, I have not used too many charm packs yet or in my lifetime, and I can't say that I've ever had that problem. I have noticed they've been off maybe 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch because of the zigzagging. So they're never perfect. How far off are yours? And if anyone else out there has had experience with that, let me know. I did learn that, and Karen, I think, had experienced it, that sometimes the thread, this is kind of a departure, but it gets to defective things that we're buying. Every once in a while, the thread can be rolled on the tube wrong, and it just makes a mess. And the manufacturers accept that, and you can return it. I don't know if they all do, but it was a known thing that it can happen, that you can get a clump of thread. Anyway, if anyone out there has ever experienced that with their charm pack, having 6 charms that were not full size, let us know. Carol says, it's the first charm pack I have bought. Oh, and I have used quite a few jelly rolls and bally pops and found them to be great. Have to say that my first experience of charm packs is not so great. Well, I would say not. I would say not. Oh, I love what you did. Oh, thank you for doing this, because people can see an alternative look. So look at that. That is your same Arkansas snowflake, but because of where Carol put the lights and darks, it looks completely different. It looks almost like a cross, doesn't it? That is great. Love it. Okay. Oh, that's right. And because, now, let me take that back, because when you look at it the other way, it is kind of like a race car, because I forgot Carol is using the dark purple as her background. Very neat. Oh, let me keep going. All right, so here we have our 4 pieces. Now it's time to pull out our handy dandy cutter and see how easy it made it. You know how I usually have to figure out what color to put where? Having those back pieces glued on is such, I think Deb said it best. She said it's a game changer. It's been raining here in New England for many days. Oh, I have another tip. Totally random, but speaking of rain, it's been raining, I think the storm, and I haven't been paying too close attention, but there have been some big storms and tornadoes and raining up and down on the eastern seaboard. Reminds me of my friend Sarah's son, Glenn, who is a merchant. I think the title is a merchant marine. So he goes out and runs ships. And when you do that, the good news is when you're on the ship, you are definitely sequestered, but then you get some time off the ship. And I think it's 1-to-1. So if he spends a month out, he gets a month off at home. Anyway, he's been boarding his ships out in Long Beach, California. And his parents live back here in New England. And he came back out here, bought himself a truck and a camper. And he's heading back out to Long Beach to pick up another boat. And on his way, he's catching many national parks. And he's writing a blog about it. And you've got to read this thing. At first, he's maybe done 3 or 4 posts. So it's not like there are a lot of posts, but he does have a blog. And he has opened it up to us to look at it. And it's fascinating. At first, I thought, oh, how will he ever do 18-mile hikes each day? And, very ambitious, very ambitious. But you see the world through the eyes of a 23-year-old man who is learning things and living in this camper. I think it was raining, so what reminded me is he's been through the Smoky Mountains, and it's been raining and foggy. And it occurred to him, and his writing's quite good. It really is. He tells a good story. Or he makes you think that you feel like you're there. And it was raining, and he had pulled into a Walmart finally. He was going to spend the night, I think, in Kentucky, and he realized it had been several days since he'd had a shower. So he stripped down to his bathing suit, probably, and he went outside and ran around the camper and took a shower. And that made me laugh. So I'll put a link to his blog on Facebook. Go to the Simply Colorful Facebook page, and I'll put it there. His first name is Glenn. Okay. But hopefully it won't rain all during his trip. It shouldn't. It's getting to be gardening time. Okay, close up my blade. That's gonna work. See how different it looks? Okay. So we'll do this. Let's see, what else can we? Here's my middle. Sandra down in Mississippi, how are you doing? And Maggie up in New Hampshire, how are you doing? Colleen, Karen, Nancy, it was nice to see you today at MQX. And Kelsey. Kelsey has exciting news too. I'm so happy for her and her business. She is going to be ramping up, I assure you. So if anyone has any quilts they need quilted, go to Blueberry Lane Studios. I hope I got that right. I'm off a little bit on this end. I wonder why. That's another thing I love about fabric, how it stretches a little bit. Okay, one more seam. And then let's compare the values of our two, of these two. And then I think we can get some of the green one done. One thing Deborah Poole said, she's the heirloom or expert quilter out west. She said sometimes quilts that come in have a lot of pieces in one place. The piecers, you know, when you do a star and you have 6 points or 8 points even at one place, they're bound to be high points. She said she has her little attitude adjuster, I think is what she called it. It's basically a pink hammer that she's covered with felt and a wooden piece of wood. And she puts the wood underneath the bump in the quilt top, slides it in, takes the hammer and just pounds it down. Okay. So. Let me pull this one off. And this really is not a good example. So my light fabric up here really could have been more uniform. So you don't see a real lot of, but it's fine. See how this looks like a race car? Let's see if I can do it this way. And that one does not look like a race car, right? Same pattern. That's what I mean by playing with values. And where I may get into trouble, I should talk to you, to the camera, where I may get in trouble on my row by row here is that I haven't stuck to the same values in the same place on all of the squares. So let me see if I can give you an example. The card trick, well, the card trick and this one may be good examples. Like, see how this is much darker on my card trick? Now that might, I think I might find that that's too dark, number one, but I probably could have gotten away with it being that dark if I had created some symmetry and put the same dark there, maybe not the same exact fabric, but that same value in the same location. And look at this, these actually go the wrong way. So this card trick goes like that. This card trick goes like that, but this one, look, it goes like that. I had the same issue here. Nope, those are all good. They're all spinning the right way. So that's good. And this, at least the top of the ring, is a darker value than the lattice in the back. So that works pretty well. Maybe here. That actually works better than I thought it would. This one, these, like, see how the top And you can't see, it's too far back, but that looks more like a star. This looks more like a jack to me. So it's just interesting. Let's see if we can play with the green a little bit. I'm not going to put the borders on. The last step, for those of you who are following along here, take a 9.5 by 3.5 inch, sew it along the top, and then take a 12.5 inch by 3.5 inch and sew it on the side. Do that, do the sashing on the same two sides across the board. You could alternate the 9 and the 12, but that's sashing. Okay, so let's put that there. I love these greens. Love, love, love them. And I've done, speaking of charm packs, so Carol, speaking of charm packs, I did buy a CAFE charm pack, and KB, the material is quite thin. That's kind of interesting. But what I love about these is it's adding that pop of color and a little bit of uniformity in my quilt. So whenever I need something, I go to this pack and I'm putting it in. This is the one that has the off-white background. So what I thought I would do is do these two to make, we're going to call these the diamonds. And then I was going to use this dark green where this pink is, and then use the light green for the four corners. So that's what I'm going to do. But first, let me check who's out there. I want to make sure I say hi to everyone on this Friday night. Thank goodness we have this to do together. I want to thank the people at Gamble, by the way, for all of their help showing me the product, walking me through it several times, and what is sure this is the first of what I believe will be a long and lasting relationship. So I'm looking forward to it. Okay, Carol. Oh, I'm glad you wrote. Carol says, here's a picture of a couple of the charm squares, a good one and one of the short ones. Oh my goodness, you got a bad pack. You have to return these. The manufacturer should definitely give you either a new pack altogether, they should, or definitely give you many more squares. No, you got the end of a run. I'd definitely go bring that back. I know it means more work, but definitely you want a good experience, because for the most part, they can be cool. You could augment your things. Wendy, speaking of Australia, when Allie wrote, she says, hello, Lynn and everyone. I feel like I haven't seen you for a long time. You haven't. We haven't seen you other than gallivanting around the world with a wonderful family and enjoying, but we're glad you're there. She says, we're on the road now, traveling south with the caravan for a major international golf championship for Luke competition and another junior from home. If they win, they will represent Australia in Las Vegas in July. I have my hexies and cross stitch with me to do while we are parked along the beach for a week. That sounds wonderful. So if they go to Las Vegas, will you come with them? Keep us posted. She says, Crystal is doing the row by row and it's beautiful, and I hope to get some CAFE facets to do mine while we are away and fabrics to start Tiffany's double wedding ring. Actually, I'm having trouble getting assorted navy fabrics here. Ooh, so if any FiberCasters are willing, oh, this is fun, willing to add to her wedding quilt. I just thought about that. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Yes, it would. She says, we are about to drive through where Cyclone Debbie went through last week. I believe it's going to be awful to see. Oh, that's too bad. She says, hope you have a wonderful weekend, Lynn, and all the FiberCasters. I will have a FiberCast marathon catch-up when I get home. Oh, well, if you're seeing this later at home, I so appreciate you writing in. We all do. We love to hear about your trips. And for Tiffany's wedding ring quilt, you need navy blues. How many? What size pieces? Are we talking 4 inches by 4 inches, 5 inches by 5 inches, 3 by 3? Let's for now say 4 by 4. I'll find a few And if people want to send them to me, I'll just package them up and send one package over to Australia. So send it to 80 Winter Street, Hopkinton, Mass, and to my attention. So it's blue fabric. I'll make a call out next week because this is going to be a multi-week project. But I love that idea. You could have fabric from everywhere. I love it. Sandra is out there. She says, Miss Bunny embroidery stitch along with Elisa Thomas. Oh, good for you. I've been seeing her online. So you did her kit. I love this. Now, what does she call herself? Like penguins and fish? Okay, if anyone is interested in doing embroidery, definitely check out Alyssa Thomas, Alyssa. That is wonderful. And she's on every night, I believe. She live streams. Oh, this is cool. Sandra says, trying to remember when I started quilting. I think it was in the late 70s when a friend of mine was expecting and knew I did cross stitch. So she picked out a clown quilt and I made it for her. Wow. Then she wanted a diaper bag to match. So I made that too. Oh. Up until then, I mostly sewed clothing and things for the house. Aw. And she says, I'm behind because I've been doing a stitch along in embroidery making the bunny. Hopefully I'll get caught up soon. Best regards, Sandra, in cool and dry Mississippi. Oh, I love your bunny, and it's so perfect for April. You could even, what are you going to do with that bunny? You could put it in your quilt, maybe. That's great. You can make a smaller row by row. Oh, ding. Hi, Maureen in PA. Grandma to be. She says, I touched fabric at AQS Quilt Show in Lancaster. Yes, I'm jealous of your new edition. Hope you'll show her on FiberCast. That's the plan. That is the plan. Ooh, I'm glad. I loved seeing the posts from everyone. Oh, that reminds me, before we end, I want to welcome a new patron. Where are my notes here? Gee, I can't believe it took me this long. Harriet Kerr. Harriet, thank you and welcome. I'm so glad you've joined us. And I also, if they're out there, I wanted to say hi to Michelle Weaver at Gamel and Zach Scavland from Kawartha Quilting and Sewing up in Ontario. He was down there in the booth. So, but Harriet, thank you very much. Okay, so let's get back to this. And I saw Sandy down at or over at in Amherst. Love to see her. And I also wanted to shout out to a few others at Kindred Quilters. So Lois and Shari, thank you for such a warm hello, both in Amherst and then yesterday in Nashua. That was great fun. Lisa Spalding out at the Quilt Foundry. Nice to meet you. So we're talking about IQ. Karen Pratt from Quilt Lily. Karen, 6 years ago, hosted she did do a mystery, but we all went out on retreat in New York and took her retreat, and she was out at Amherst 6 years later. So that was nice to see her. She's doing great. Jane Halpridge, she taught this morning's class. I want to thank her for teaching us some quilting techniques. I mentioned Mandy Appleby out at Yellow House Quilts. She did some great teaching. And that's it. I have personal addresses for several people that we're going to keep in touch as we go along this new journey in our quilting project. Marty, hi Marty. Speaking of Patreons. Marty says, one of these times I hope to be able to download the pattern also. This is not turning out to be good. So is everyone having trouble downloading the pattern from Patreon? And even one person having trouble is too many. So Marty, if you're getting an error, if you could send me the error or just tell me what the error is in email, I will reach out to Patreon and see what's happening. And But in the meantime, I'll send it right over to you. Shoot, that's frustrating. Rebecca, she says, hi, Lynn, my block 7. I went with the layout from the pattern shown in the picture below. It's different from the other examples in the pattern. I'm interested to see if anyone else does this layout too. Oh, good. I can't wait to see this. From Columbus. It's downloading. Oh, how neat. Exactly. See, they were different. You noticed that. Oh, I like what you did. So that's more like the X. That looks more like Carol Bell's interpretation. And if you noticed, what was it, page 4 or 5, where, so I have all 5 quilts laid out that on week 12 you'll see. And every week I've been cutting that row so you see the row. And I noticed that I colored the values differently on all 5 quilts. So it looks like Becca chose the double format. Exactly. That's great. It's all different. Oh, thank you for writing in. Thank you all for being out there. This is just great. Oh, let me do a little ironing here and here. I guess maybe we aren't going to get too much of the green. But I certainly so needed this piecing. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put the green aside for a minute and I'll put the stashing on this one. So at least we're done with that. There and there. Let's put all of that there. Then I can pull the papers off. There's one there. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Starts thinking about fall for those of you down under. Start thinking about spring for those of us up yonder. Hi to Aunt Jane if you're out there, and Mom and KB. There's one. Do a quick iron. Okay. Oh, an update on the shed. Remember last week I was telling you about the house building project that Bob's working on? It was an issue with moving the shed. So Mom, I think you were correct. That was the biggest impediment to the neighbor. The short story is that this property that Bob is in the middle of buying had the neighbor's shed was on the property. So of course Bob couldn't buy the property with the shed still on it. And the neighbor wasn't budging for a while. Well, he's budged, and Sunday, Bob's going to help him move his shed 3 feet that way. So all is well. So I veered off the line quite a bit here, so I'm going to do another pass. I was too busy chit-chatting. There we go. All right. Well, I think it's time to count our blessings, be thankful for another Friday night together. Yay! Look at that. I give it a press. There we go. Thank you for joining me tonight. I will see you here next Friday night, Good Friday night. I will be here. So please join me if you're around, and have a great weekend and week. Bye, everyone.